So I think we are ready to go. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Lars Steffen. I'm Director International at ECO, Association of the Internet Industry, and one of the project managers of the topDNS initiative. Today, we have part 3 of our topDNS best practice webinar series, how to investigate online abuse with free tools. And with us today, we have Theo Geurts. He is Certified Information Privacy Professional and Governance Risk and Compliance Officer at Realtime Register, based in the Netherlands. Welcome, Theo. And before we start, I just would like to go briefly through our housekeeping rules. So this webinar, of course, is being recorded. Also, of course, this recording will be available after the meeting. You are muted throughout the webinar. And we would like to have this webinar as interactive as possible. So you are free to ask questions throughout the webinar. You have a questions pod on the right-hand side of the dashboard of the GoToWebinar panel, where you type in questions. But of course, you can also submit your questions verbally by clicking on the raise your hand button. We will unmute you, and please state your name and your affiliation before you ask a question. And as always, you will receive a survey after the webinar. This is always an opportunity to provide feedback and to tell us if the webinar was helpful, useful, and how we can make it better for the next time. And then about topDNS, here you can see the supporters and sponsors of the topDNS initiative, and you can also follow the link that I put in the chat, where you can see all the details. And if you're interested in who is active on the topDNS initiative steering committee, here are the faces. So next to Theo, you have a couple of others from the industry that are very active on this initiative. And if we have the 3rd edition of the topDNS best practice webinar series today, yes, of course, there has also already been part 1. So if you take a look at the chat, I share the link to the recording of the first one. So the first one was how to reduce abuse through quality, where Theo, together with Brian Symbolic from PIR, explained how the QPI program of PIR is working. And the second one, and I share the recording with you on the chat as well, was about standards and frameworks for evidencing abuse online by Jeff Betzer from Clean DNS. And of course, there will be a 4th one coming up quite soon. So in September, on Tuesday the 19th, we will have a webinar in collaboration with the DNS Research Federation about recognizing good practice in the DNS towards positive data-driven policy discussions, where they provide results from a survey on the correlation between policies and abuse rates among CCTLDs from the European Union. So take a look at the website, or just follow the link that I also share on the chat, where you can register for free to participate in this webinar as well. And with this, I would like to hand over to Theo to tell us more about how to investigate abuse with free tools online. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So here we go. What I'm going to show you today is how we can sort of solve a couple of problems that I've got as a registrar. As a wholesale registrar, I don't have any payment info from the registrant, so I can't really look at that data to make any assumptions if the payment was good or bad. So I don't know if the domain name is going to be used for bad practices or malicious practices or whatever. Basically, I don't have much to go on. And then I have another issue. Since we operate on an operational level, we also get abuse reports from banks from China. And, basically, I don't know how to investigate that. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what this is, what is happening on the screen. Just took this picture this morning through Pulse Dive. But basically, if you don't know, I don't know, we all don't know. So we're going to do a couple of things here today and make sure that we get some more information to our availability. So coming a little bit back on those abuse reports, what I started doing a couple of years ago, I put all these abuse reports, the domain names, registrant, name service, I put them in a spreadsheet. And within a couple of weeks, I could definitely see patterns here. And those patterns, I turn them into keywords. And keywords, you can basically, scan them really, really quickly. So what I do every day is I make an export of all the new domain names that have been registered at a real-time register. And then I use a program like OpenSquad to make sure that I can scan those domain names really quickly in keywords. And it looks a little bit like this. And we're not going through the entire list here, but to give you a little bit of an impression on how that works, I got like 231 keywords, and I parsed a whole bunch of domain names really, really quickly. And if we go through the list here a little bit, because I don't want to bog down on this tool, but it's pretty handy. It's OpenSquad, created by Andre. You can find it on github.com. Just Google it. And I just parsed like 1,300 domain names really quick and with a confidence level of high. But you can use a lot of options within OpenSquad. I mean, what I basically just did was search for lookalike domain names based on the keywords that I've been feeding it for years now. But you can also do an assumption like with VirusTotal, you can use Quad9 to see if the domain name is already blocked on their end. But basically, you go through the list, you get a result page, and there is a little, I should mention, it produces false positives, but you can also reduce those false positives really quick. I'm going to show that a little bit later on when we're going to scan in bulk. But here we go. It found a couple of domain names like this one. My French is not that really great, but it's distri-moi.fr. And if you look at domain name up through one of the tools, we'll quickly see what it is. And it's a firewood scam. And still there's a shortage in Europe when it comes to electricity, gas, heating is an issue altogether. I mean, it has become very expensive here after Russia invaded the Ukraine. So you still see all this kind of stuff popping up everywhere now and then, and they're just trying to sell all this non-existent stuff. And still quite popular. I mean, you still see a couple of them each day. So OpenSquad, highly recommended. And let's now move on to Vietnam. I mean, earlier this year, I noticed that one of our resellers had suddenly a high volume in registrations. And I took those registrations and I scanned them through my regular tool, which happens to be either Pulse Dive or URL Scan. And URL Scan has a fantastic feature where you can submit domain names in bulk. Not only can you submit them, but you can also choose from which country you want to scan from. If you want to scan from Japan, again with Chinese banks or Japanese banks, they are usually geo-blocked, so it makes sense to scan from Japan. Also, what's getting annoying very lately is all those mobile scams. So meaning they will only show up as a website on your mobile phone or your smartphone and not on a PC or an iPad. So with this, you can mimic whatever you want. If you want to mimic Internet Explorer, Opera, if you want to do Android, it's all there. So it's very handy to use this to scan domain names. So I just put a small sample here. I mean, these criminals from Vietnam, they usually sometimes register 1,200, 2,000 domain names a day, kind of depends on the reseller with us, but these guys are registering domain names at large, so to speak, and not just with us. It's across the entire industry, if I'm completely honest. And they are extremely hard to spot. So when I was going to scan these, I noticed that all my scans failed, and it was kind of surprising because the way they were registered, it was a Dutch reseller, and suddenly he had like 60 registrants from Vietnam. That was kind of weird, and it reminded me of a phishing campaign of 18 months ago, which was Facebook related. I'll look it up really quick here.
Theo, we've got one question about Open Squad. If the results all depend on the keywords that you've added, or if there are other ways for configuration.
It's all based on the keywords that you provided, and I base it on the abuse reports that I receive. So if I suddenly see a lot of domain names that go like support hyphen BOI hyphen 365, then it's going to use the keyword support there, which is very generic, which will cause false positives, but it also ensures you that in this case, when it's bank phishing, like BOI stands for Bank of Ireland, we'll get to that in a minute, by the way. You can spot those domain names much easier, and it reduces. So you can act much quicker, and they are very generic. But you can also take brands. You can take your own company name, for example. Within Open Squad, you can also you can use your own domain names, but there is an option to download the domain names from yesterday, and then it will pull the entire zone file. You can do all the domain names registered an entire month ago, which is quite intensive because it's going to download a whole lot of domain names from zone file. So there's a lot of you can do with Open Squad and keywords, and play with it a little bit.
Thank you.
Moving back, this was what I discovered like 18 months ago. Re-registrations of domain names, and then they all had these login pages for Facebook. Apparently, the language was Vietnamese, and that's when I sort of encountered this 18 months ago. And I sort of expected that to happen earlier this year, but that didn't pan out for some reason because there was no AU record defined, so there was no website. So I had to dig a little deeper. What I usually do is then I switch to Pulse Dive. Well, usually I run it in tandem actually, which if you create a free account, you can do an analysis in bulk. And again, I'm only going to use these 4 domain names because if we're going to do a couple of hundred, then it's going to take forever. And apparently I did prep this. So looking here, we still don't have a domain name that resolves to an IP address, but we have an SPF record present here. And again, we have an SPF record present here, and again. But what is in the SPF record? That was kind of intriguing and quite a discovery. Because all these domain names, and I just taken 4 domain names from 2 different resellers who actually had 4 different unique registrants. And somehow they all ended up with these email addresses. So that led me to believe that there must be a alias catch-all on all these domain names. And again, the Gmail addresses are the same again. And if you look at forwardamail.net, and I wasn't aware of what it was back in the day, but it became pretty evident when I went through it. You can set up your custom email, custom and secure email for your custom domains, and basically it just you set up the service, let it run, forward all email to your email address, and basically you're going to get a lot of information. I mean, there has been a study out within ICANN, I think, a couple of years ago, where the researchers took a domain name that had been registered previously, then of course deleted and got re-registered again. And I think they collected 60,000 emails from that domain name in a year time. And I sort of replicated that a couple of years ago myself. And it's funny how Gmail just sorts everything out for you. I mean, at the moment you sort of reactivate the domain name, you get all kinds of email, and you get your social media, which is already grouped neatly together in Gmail, so you know exactly what social media accounts this person used to have. Same goes for shopping. All the web shops that are still pumping out all these advertisement newsletters and God knows what. Get neatly grouped there, so you know exactly what kind of web shops this person has used in the past. It's quite astonishing. Of course, my problem was the re-registration of domain names is not illegal. Putting a forwarder service on it, I don't think that's illegal. Also, I think in some cases it's good OPSEC. I mean, you can do some really great stuff with it. Yeah, but then of course the collection of all those emails, that's a gray area. I'm not a lawyer, but I sort of can predict where this is going to sort of end up. I mean, this is not looking great. I mean, these guys are registering 100,000 domain names on a weekly basis. So they are collecting a ton of information about from a lot of people. And I don't think they're going to use it for anything good. So Owen, who's also on the call, is currently coordinating with the FBI, which is great because we need some law enforcement attention to this. So this is how you sort of can spot these Vietnamese cyber criminals a little bit quicker than just staring at the registrations in your system. Okay, moving on. Let's see. So, and again, in the example with OpenSquad, you know, the results, you can dump them in Pulse Dive or URL scan and starts making all the screenshots for you, so you can go through it really quick and make the determination if something is really, really bad or not. And also a really great feature of URL scan is it shows you how many similar domain names there are out there. You know, so what you see here is there's like 5,433 domain names that look the same like the one that is on the screen right now. So that gives you potentially sort of an impression of the size of the problem you're looking at. So if you've never seen this before on your platform and you are wondering like, is there more out there? Is there a phishing attack going on? You know, you just hit the similar button and it will show you all the results that URL scan has. And then you just sort of look through it and go like, this was registered a day ago, perhaps. You go like, okay, this is similar to what I'm seeing on our platform. So it gives you a real quick confirmation like, okay, I'm dealing with a bigger problem here. You know, and the same happened with this is a security message supposedly from the Allied Irish Bank, which is a bank phishing, which is going on for 12 months now. And again, it's quite substantial, more than 2,600 domain names out there. So that is how you can easily go through all this stuff. Pulse Dive has a similar feature. Let me show you really quick. It's a little bit more hidden. Pulse Dive is like a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. You keep just untangling all the tools till you get what you want. This is President Erdogan from Turkey. This is a family bank phish, which happened a couple of months ago when there were elections in Turkey and President Erdogan sort of promised a family bank where people, students could get loans, families, farmers, and apparently it was a election promise. Funny thing is that by the time the phishing started, the real family bank, but wasn't even live, so it didn't even exist. So scammers just sort of prey on everything. Anyways, you can look up really quickly on the screenshots itself, explore it, and then it gives you an impression on how many domain names are involved. Here we are talking about 100 plus, and this is all Turkish family bank phishing. Do I got some more examples for you? This is very popular since the invasion in the Ukraine and all these sanctions became active for Russia. Counter-Strike 2, popular game. Apparently, they can't use their Steam accounts anymore where you play the game on. So they are now phishing for all these Steam accounts because Russian players do not have access or the ability to make payments to Steam and to get access to the game. So everything is being utilized for any scams. And again, more than 1,000. So again, pretty quickly you see how big the size is of a scam, which makes your life pretty much easier. Okay. Now we're going to move forward to another issue that keeps popping up, and these are those cryptocurrency scams. And this is really getting annoying and is getting really, really big. I mean, last year I kicked out 2,000 of them, and the impact on the victims is scary high. I mean, the lowest I have seen is 15,000, but I also got reports from actually a cop in Canada who had a victim who lost $1 million to one of these cryptocurrency scams. And on a yearly basis, we're talking about 4 billion. But I wouldn't be surprised if that is much, much, much higher. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 20 billion. Anyways, this domain name was registered a day ago. It's not with us, so that's one of the reasons it's not down, but I can show you this. And basically what you do is sort of use logic here to go like, okay, what I'm looking at. I mean, if you're not familiar with it, there are some clues that might tip you off like, okay, it has just been registered like a day ago. The hourly volume is almost 96 million, which is strange for something that is brand new. And then they got all these partners, 3,500, amazing. That must be a record to do that within 1 day. And just basically when you go through this, you find little stuff, hints, if you will, like for example testimonials. I love testimonials. There's always an error in it. I mean, we have this person here that says he's been using the service for 3 months now, which is impossible. I mean, the domain name is just a day old. But you can also do a little bit reverse searching with all these pictures. And for that, we're going to use Intel Techniques. Intel Techniques, if you're not familiar with it, it has a ton of search tools. It's not just image searches. You can go through Facebook. You can do document searches through all kind of stuff. Basically anything you want, they've got a search option for it. So if you really have a target and you want to go deep, you can have a go at it. Virtual currency is always handy when you get an email with a Bitcoin address. Shows you exactly how much the scammer already managed to obtain from innocent victims. Anyways, let's use this picture to see if we can find something more about this person.
And in the meantime, Theo, we've got one further question from Steiner from IQ. So he's asking, I understand these examples are domain names registered by your clients. What do you request your client to do when it is not a false positive?
Well, my clients are the resellers. So, and my resellers are hosting companies. So if we find something, and it is not a false positive, but it's unknown to me, then I send it to the reseller to deal with it. After all, they're the hosting companies, especially when it's a compromised domain name or website, then there is nothing I can do about it. The example that I'm showing now, this one, I'll probably take it down within a couple of minutes after investigation. So if it's very obvious to me and I've got experience with it and it matches my internal guidelines, if you will, the holy trinity on which I base my investigations, my analysis, my profiling on, if that is all in sync, then I take it down because then I've got enough evidence and confidence to take it down. And I'm also in a position that I most likely can explain it to a judge why I took it down. If I don't have enough reasons to able to convince a judge, well, then it's going to be very tricky, and I most likely will refer it to the reseller so they can have a look on their side. Uh, Basically, ask them, check the payment options, what happened there, is it all legit, and if you see any reason for taking it down, please do so. And that is basically the process for us as a wholesale registrar.
And the follow-up question from Jeff from Clean DNS is, what is your average time of investigation per domain?
It's labor intensive, but it can vary between 5 minutes. If I know what it is, I've dealt with it before, then it's about 5 minutes. I mean, it goes pretty quick. If it's something I never encountered before, well, could be 2 hours before I come up with something evidence-wise that is strong enough. But yeah, that's the reality of it. And some of this stuff can take months, and I leave it up, and I have no idea what it is. And then suddenly, many months later, finally abuse reports comes in, and somebody says, "I've been robbed from my money." I'm going to show an example in a bit here on where that actually happened, where it took like 2 weeks before I had a victim, and that's how long an investigation can take, basically. So a little reverse search on Google Images using this picture. And what do you know? Google has a lot of testimonials for this woman. We got marextrades.com, tradeIdealsexperts.com, binertrade.co. I mean, this woman is all over the place. And basically, it's for me, it's again another indication like, okay, because if you start looking up these domain names, this woman is on all these domain names as a testimonial for the service. And that is not a good sign, in my opinion. And of course, having dealt with this so for a pretty long time, you know, at some level you get a basic sense like you know it's already bad, and you've taken down so many of them, and you never heard back from anybody, from the registrants in this case, complaining like you took it down by mistake. I yet have to see an email about these investment scams where the criminal wrote back that was a mistake. That has never happened. I did make mistakes in the past, but when we're talking about this, no, you can safely take them down if you have enough evidence. And what I'm showing here is a subset of examples. I would actually need a little bit more evidence. So, but it all depends on your reference experience. Uh, so that's what you gotta all take into account when dealing with this stuff. So this person is all over the place and not in a good way, in my opinion. And lately I've begun to sort of start looking at deepfakes, sort of try to get an understanding what I'm looking at. And I recently began with this like 2 weeks ago, and basically I'm still sort of in the process. What does it tell me? I mean, if you look at some of these of the stuff out here, like this person does not exist.com. This is all AI generated. I'm still trying to sort of wrap my head around all this. Like, what does that mean when doing research, when doing investigations? I mean, in the past, setting up LinkedIn accounts with profile pictures like this, pretty easy. But we starting to see more and more and more of this into our lives. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at a couple of fake web shops selling clothing lines. And it turns out all these persons were AI generated, and that's kind of a shocker. So I'm currently looking into how can I detect if something is a AI generated picture. And I'm currently using this EfficientNet version 2 deepfake image detector, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it so far. In the sense, like it gives me sort of an indication what I could be looking at, and having reviews by people who are not real or AI generated, that is not a great sign. But apparently, this seems to be a stock photo, though the fake level 34%, well, it's still a little bit on the high side if I'm truly honest.
Theo,
And again,
another question I'm sorry. Another question that I have for you is if you talking about taking down domain names, does it mean that you put them on client hold or if you use other tools?
I always put them on client hold because that's the most visible way for most reporters to do a check later on to see if a domain name has been taken down. I know, I think Netcraft checks regularly if a domain name is set to client hold, and the moment they notice it is set to client hold, they will automatically resolve the issue, and then you will get no further reports from them. So, but they are not the only one out there. But I always recommend set a domain name to client hold if you can. There's a couple of CC/TLD registries out there who don't support it. I think Danic is one. It's pretty annoying because then you got to do all this other stuff, which isn't really fast on our end, anyways. So, but I do client hold. That is the fastest and quickest way to take this down.
Thank you.
Moving forward again, let's have a look at this lady here. She is also in the testimonials. Oh, one word of advice here. There's Google Images where you can do this, Google Lens, Bing, TinyEye, Yandex. I usually use Google, Yandex, and then TinyEye. I don't use Bing all that much. I don't get the results I want. TinyEye is okay-ish. Yandex usually gets some pretty good results also. But so far, Google Images does the trick pretty neatly. And again, this lady is also all over the place. It's all the same pattern. And the more you see these same patterns on what is going on, it gives you more evidence and it gives you more confidence. Like, okay, this is just unreal that a crypto exchange needs so many domain names. What you're dealing with is a group of criminals who keep pumping out all these domain names, set up these websites, advertisement through social media, or they contact you through a app like WhatsApp. And then you suddenly get a email from of a text, a message from some lady with a stunning profile who suddenly starts saying hi and then apologizes. She got the wrong person, but she keeps on chatting. You keep on chatting. And at the end of the day, she turns out to be a cryptocurrency expert and she has this fantastic opportunity for you. And then you lose a lot of money. That's basically how this scam works. And if we scan this lady, also, then it becomes a little bit more interesting. Apologies. and most likely this is fake. So that's not a great sign when it comes to writing reviews for such cryptocurrencies. And again, like I said, the impact is pretty high and it's hard to investigate, and they are literally all over the place. I think I got a couple more examples. Oh yeah, you got this very annoying one. That's with the airdrops, pancake airdrop, Mickey Mouse airdrop, Dogecoin. It's just, it goes on and on and on. And let me talk a little bit about one of these crypto drainers. And it was one that took me quite a while to figure out what it was and how it is working. Uh, URL Scan has a great search function, by the way, for looking up archives. This was a year ago. Looked like this. TrustPad. Basically, when you enter the website, visited the website, there's a little counter that started counting down. You had less than 1 hour to claim your $500 in cryptocurrencies. Problem is, you shouldn't be connecting your crypto wallet through a website, because that is a recipe for disaster to have your wallet drained. And again, I saw these registrations come in, about 400 of them, and but I didn't know what was going on. I mean, there's so much stuff going on with Web3, crypto, blockchain, NFTs. I don't keep track of all of it, so I'm not an expert in just getting a sense, is this legit or not? Well, it turns out this was not legit, because somebody connected his crypto wallet to it and then lost $15,000 in crypto. But it turns out that I was able to sort of reverse engineer the code, and I didn't do that myself. A security researcher who kept reporting these things, sort of made me aware what I should be looking at. And apparently, in the JavaScript, and I will show you this sort of quickly. Wrong button. So this is a lot of code. I'm not going to walk you through it, but apparently, if you're looking at it, there is a drain command. Should be a drain command. It isn't. That happens when you do stuff live. Probably one of the other JavaScript modules. But basically, you can look at the code, reverse it back, engineer it somewhat back, and then go like, okay, all these domain names have that specific command in the code, and that is just another piece of evidence. It's all circumstantial, of course, that might give you some clues on what you're dealing with. And it goes pretty deep. I am completely aware. Should you be doing it? I don't know that answer. Uh, but since we don't, as a wholesale registrar, I don't have much choice. When I get all these abuse reports, I don't have the payment info, which is problematic for me as a registrar. I mean, of course, I have the payment information of our resellers, but they are legit. We vetted them. But the registrant payment information, which is usually very, very rich, we don't have that. So I sort of have to work my way around this, but still pretty good results. I mean, it gets the job done. And maybe we will encounter a situation when things will get worse, that even the payment information isn't good enough anymore, that criminals sort of will be able to bypass all those checks. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, those Vietnamese criminals that I talked about earlier, they apparently use stealer logs to gain access to legitimate register and control panels. And if there's a credit card on file, they're going to max it out and the payment will look very legit. So at some point, you will need to do more and more and more and more. What you do have, of course, as a registrar, regardless if you are wholesale or if you are a retail, you always have access to the email addresses. And this is one of the tools that has helped me greatly in the past. Because here I can look up the email addresses, and that gives you a pretty good indication what to look at. I'm going to use an old Gmail address here. Look up the turtle. So basically what we are seeing here is it shows my name, and that is correct. The last time I actually updated the terms and conditions of Google was in March the 18th. If you have a new Gmail account created by a criminal, then it's usually the day of today or yesterday or maybe this week. But and that is most likely an indication that it's not a legit registrant you are dealing with. Also, this Gmail address is linked to a Gravatar account. That is correct because I did once set up a Gravatar account with a specific Gmail address. So this tool is able to find out which services you are connected to. It also says that my Gmail account is connected to Trello. Again, that is correct. And as such, it will list those services here. And that is a good sign. If it finds nothing, then most likely the Gmail address or whatever other address is spanking brand new. And that is a bad sign. If somebody is using his Gmail address for a long time, and I quit using Gmail a long time ago, but still it matches some services attached to it. The more services you see, like Pornhub, Amazon, Spotify, that gives you more confidence. Like, okay, this person is already using this Gmail address in a legit manner. It has an account with Amazon connected to it, most likely to order something at Amazon and make sure that the information is good enough to receive packages from Amazon. So most likely that person has a legit home address or PO box set up at Amazon, and it gives you more and more information on is this person legit or not. And I find this a very good service because in my experience, criminals who register a domain name usually have no history whatsoever, and the updated day of the terms and condition is always yesterday or today or a few hours ago. And that's basically just a burner email address. And they like to use Gmail a lot, by the way, is my experience. And I think that is because a lot of people have a lot of faith in Google. Maybe I don't, but it's just one great tool in your tool belt, and you can never have enough. Speaking about tool belts, when you are looking at sort of managing all these tools, I use Start.me, and it is basically the tool sets that I have gathered over the years. Uh, and Start.me is a great bookmark manager to use for all your stuff that you find in there. I'm not using everything, but I still do always have my top 20, what I sort of use. Like if I want to need to know something about the SSL certificate, an SSL certificate can tell you a lot about the subdomain names. So if you have a domain name and there's like 500 subdomain names and they're all bank related, well, that's a pretty bad sign, in my opinion. And most likely you are looking at bank phishing. And certificate search can be extremely powerful in that sense. And you got
May I interrupt you? We've got two more questions. One
sure.
is a general one. So, how much time you actually spend on investigations per day on the average?
I would say around 4 to 6 hours. But there
Okay.
is a reason. Maybe I should rephrase that a little bit. That is the actual time that I'm doing research. But that is because also due to the fact that I assist law enforcement agencies with their investigations. So that all adds up. I would say in general, in the morning when I do all my quick scans in the morning, a lot of this stuff that I'm showing you, we already automated that. So when I wake up in the morning, I already got a full report ready. It just needs a manual review. That takes like an hour, 2 hours a day, depending how many registrations we had that day.
And another question is, if you know, how does EPIOS get the info about LinkedIn accounts?
Sorry, what was the question?
How the EPIOS get the info about LinkedIn accounts?
Ah, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I suspect, which is in all cases, I mean, it also does it for Twitter, and most likely this tool is connected to a lot of APIs that are available for LinkedIn, for Twitter, for Amazon, and it just pulls that info. When I was toying around with the API Twitter, I was actually flabbergasted how much information I could pull and find about myself through the API. And back in the day when Facebook, they also had like that was a search API, which was extremely powerful and highly abused, but was very handy in investigations. And you basically could use their API to connect all these profiles which you were investigating. And you basically had your information about some of these targets within minutes, and you had their entire travel history, for example. It's just nuts. So I suspect it goes through all these APIs. I haven't asked the creators behind this tool, but I suspect it's through APIs. That's usually the case.
Thank you.
Let me see if I sort of wrapping up here. I think I'm sort of done. At least, let me check. Yeah, there are some other things to look at, but I think I'm going to skip that. I'm not going to be able to go through that in the next 10 minutes, so I'm going to give you all. Oh, I'm due forgetting something, and that is something pretty important, in my opinion. This is Virus Total. I use that a lot. Usually, when I get an abuse report, I always check with Virus Total if they already got issues with a domain name. And just looking at this domain name, there are 90 security vendors already telling this is a very bad domain name. Kaspersky has an opinion about it, Asset, Avira, Sophos, Acronis, GData, etc., etc. So if you see a lot of hits on a domain name through Virus Total, that is a very bad sign. In the sense, it's a good sign that you shouldn't be too worried when you take the domain name down for making any mistakes, because this is already so much blacklisted. Probably if you look up the domain name, I'm not going to do it because I don't know what it is. But I see malware, so most likely every browser in the world is already blocking this. So there's not much issues there when you take it down. Uh, what I wanted to do is, at some point, you've done all your scanning, you've done your investigations, you use this tool, that tool, whatever tool. I mean, there's a lot more you can do. And then at some point, I need to go back to our reseller. the hosting company. And in the past, I would send them an email like, we found this and this and this and this. I'm speeding that process up by using a different tool, and that is called cybergordon.com. Here I can just put in the domain names that I investigated, click analyze, and then it will give me a lot of information on the domain names itself. Let me sort it by engine. So it already tells me, and it will also tell the reseller that Google Safe Browsing had an issue with this. Here are all the URL scan screenshots are available here. So a reseller just can click on the URL and just gets directed directly to the screenshots, which contains the information on what kind of fish it was, or offending website, or whatever. It shows the results of VirusTotal, which is very powerful, and basically it gives you some more and more information on what is going on. It gives this is pretty funny actually. This is one of the very few that connect to RDAP to pull WHOIS data, or RDAP data in this case. Meta Defender has some more information about these domain names that I investigated. Pulse Dive has some stuff. I get information on the SSL certificates that are there. And basically, most of the times I just create a PDF for the reseller, and then he or she can look at the information and take it from there. I mean, sometimes they want screenshots, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they find most resellers that I'm engaging with, if they see that VirusTotal has a domain name blocklisted all over the place, then that's enough reasons for them to take action. So basically, it's like a Chinese salad. You just can pick something you like to eat. And that is the power of CyberGordon. It gives you that information really quick, and you can export it in whatever format you want, or give them a link that will expire in 7 days. That's good for privacy, if there's any privacy related materials in it. And that's it.
Theo, I've got one more. It's more a comment than a question regarding VirusTotal. So Steiner from IQ just mentioned, I often use VirusTotal, but have experienced that VirusTotal lists many feeds even though the domain name is not resolving. Do you share this experience?
Yeah, I do, and that's why I always hit the reload button, because sometimes I'm looking at very archived results from a year ago, which is not actual. And yes, sometimes the domain name is down, or it looks down, but it could be a geo block on it. So yes, I do have the same experience, but I also am sort of aware of the fact that there could be a reason that we are not seeing any content because there's a geo block on it. So that could also be an issue. And those geo blocks are getting more and more advanced from time to time. I mean, a couple of months ago, I was looking at some bank phishing, and every time I looked up the domain name, I was seeing a blog about flowers. But when I was looking from a Brazilian IP address, I would see a bankfish, same domain name. So it can be pretty advanced out there.
Okay, thank you. And because there has already been the question about the links to all the tools, so we will put together a summary of the webinar, which will also include all the links to the tools. So no worries, you will get all the information that you're looking for after the webinar. So thank you, but thank you for coming up with the question. Do we have any other questions from the floor? Now is the opportunity to ask questions, because we are getting to the top of the hour. This is just a thank you very much. Thank you, Carsten. So if there are no further questions or no further requests for the floor, I would like to, Steiner, you have a question.
Yeah, hi, this is Steiner from IQ. I hope you can hear me well. First of all,
Yes.
thank you very much, Theo, for an excellent presentation and extremely interesting to this. I'm and as a little bit. I'm just wondering. You have a business model with a lot of resellers, and the way I understand that, when you discover some bunch of domain names newly registered from that reseller that are a significant portion is suspicious. You There might be an assumption that your reseller is more or less been maybe been hacked, etc., etc. Um, how do you deal with that? Do you just um, how can you assist the reseller that has been hacked because he's actually feeding bad stuff into your accreditations? So I'm curious. This maybe not in this something that we should spend time on this, but I'd love to have a short answer, and I will grab you when we have the time and a beer. Thank you.
Sure. So there's okay, really quick. I always try to get domain names as down as fast as possible, because the longer the uptime, the longer the criminals enjoy it, and the more they will use that reseller for their criminal purposes. So keep the uptime as low as possible, and then those codes will go to other registrar. That's the sad reality of it, but that's how I keep our platform clean. Now, in the case that resellers get hacked, that does happen from time to time. We detect it. We always have the contact information of those resellers. So we reach out to the support team. Most of the time, we know who the CEO is. We got very short lines, communication lines with our resellers. That's because usually they're pretty big also, because we focus on large resellers. So we always have a lot of contacts with those resellers, be it their support, their salespeople, the CEO, the finance people, the technical people. We will reach out as quickly as possible, explain what's going on, come up with possible remediation scenarios, and see if we can assist them as fast as possible. Uh, Most of the times we have a pretty good idea what's going on, and for them it's just a matter of investigation, confirming it, and addressing the solution, and make sure that whatever is going on goes away. That's the short of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Theo. Again, excellent presentation.
You're
Good
welcome.
time spent.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
Steiner. So, and now we are really reaching the top of the hour. So I would like to thank Theo for the presentation. Thank you very much. And thank you for to everybody who participated in this webinar. And we hope that you found the session interesting and informative. Again, it would be great if you would take the time to complete the feedback survey that we will present right after the session. And as I already mentioned, we will put together a summary, including all the links to the tools. So you will have everything at hand. And with this, thank you, everybody. Have a nice rest of the day. This meeting is adjourned.